lab number 2. But before we'll go into lab number 2, let's kind of look at the problem number 9 and 10. So if P is 0.2, what are the pull frequencies for the population? P is a dominant allele. Frequency of the allele, it will be 0.2. You can also says what? 20%, 0.2 times 100. Make sure that whenever you're writing, keep it consistent. If you started with 0.2, keep it in 0.2 and read the question. If it says what is the percentage, yes, then change into a percentage. If not, keep it in the decimals. Some people don't like decimals, that's fine with me, but as long as you're keeping it consistent. So if our P is 0.2, what would be our Q? Well, we know that P plus Q equal 1. In order for 0.2 to be equal, for 0.2 plus Q equal 1, it have to be 0.8. Yep, absolutely correct. Now, all we need to do is now square those particular things. 0.8 squared would be 0.64, or 0.64 times 100, 64%. Now, P squared, 0.2 squared will give us what? 0.04, or 4%. Now, all we need to do is figure it out PQ, 2PQ. 2 times 0.2, which will be 0.4, times 0.8, which will be 0.32, or 32%. Now we'll stop right here. I guess I can type it in. So let's see. This is a 0.2. Oops. .2. This one we decided it's 0.8 or 0.8. Okay, cool. So that one will become 0.64 or not point, just 64%, 64. That one would be 0.02, 04. Also known as 4%. Now here we decided that it's our 0.032. No. 0.32, right? And then it would be 32%. So this is where it says, let's stop. Why stop? Remember to double check our math. How? Well, P squared 0.04 plus 2PQ 0.32 plus Q squared 0.64 have to be equal 1. So 0.04 plus 0.32, 0.36 plus 0.64 equal 1. We did it correctly. If you don't want a points, you can add all of that up right here, the percentages. And if you add percentages, it have to be equal to 100%. 64 plus 4, 68. 68 plus 32 is 100%. If you got something more or less, you did something wrong. Double check your math, always. That's the easy part, right? Now, let's take a look at the part B. If a population of 50 individuals, how many would have a dominant phenotype? And it's kind of loaded questions. First of all, it's 50 individuals and also that type right here, dominant phenotype. Let's start with just the percentages. Within that particular population, what percentage will have a dominant phenotype? What do you think? What's your paper is saying? Just the percentage. I'm looking for the percentage. Would it be 64? Would it be 4? Would it be 32? Any other numbers? Talk to me. Oh, type it. What do you have? I don't have anything, right? Anybody? You can do it in private. Directly to me. Don't be afraid of wrong answer, that's fine. I will not yell. I will not do anything. I need some sort of response from you guys. Any numbers? No numbers? Nobody whatsoever. 2 out of 50. That's 2%. All right, cool. Very nice. Good numbers. Wrong, but good answers. All right. Let me go back. Thank you, guys. In this particular case, let's see. Dominant allele, right? Dominant allele. Right here. So wherever we have P, this is our dominant phenotype. 20%, very nice. 10%, interesting. Not really sure how you come up with that, but here's the logic behind that particular question. Wherever we have P, do we have P right here? No. Do we have P right there? Yes. So we're taking this number right there. Do we have P right here? Yes, we do have P right here. So those numbers will be also showing up as dominant. Remember, whenever we did the rabbit simulation, we had capital F, which is a P square, and we had capital F lowercase f. They were still furry, which is a dominant trait. So in this particular case, how many? 4% and 32%. 4 plus 32, 36% of the population would be dominant. They look like dominant. Make sense? Why are you dividing by 2? No, it is not the answer. No, 20 is not the answer. No, 36 is. Because you're not taking, whenever you have a heterozygous individual, right? Remember the furry bunny with a capital F and lowercase f. It's not like a half a bunny furry and another half is the hairless. In this particular case, because the P is a dominant trait, it will cover, it will mask the hairless bunny. So the bunny will be completely haired, furred, but it will be a carrier for hairless things. So the correct answer is 36. Now, 36 is the part of the answer. Because now it's not asking what's the percentage. It says if we have 50 individuals, then what would be, how many number of the individuals will be? All we need to do is find out 36% out of 50. How can you do that? You multiply. You're taking 36%. You are, yes, 18 is the correct answer. In order to get rid of the percentages, 36% will be divided by 100. So you will end up with 0.36 times your population. Your population is 15 in this particular question. Therefore, the correct answer is, somebody just told me already, 18. And this is how I come up, or let's say next time I will tell you, I'll ask you in a population of 150 individuals. All you need to do is take figured out the percentage and then multiply it by 150. In this particular case, it was saying 50. We figured out the percentage. So we remove the percent sign from the number. So 36.36 times 50, 18%. This is the final answer. That's the answer what the B is asking. Make sense? Yes, 18. So let's take a look at C. Would be the gene pool frequency in the next generation? What would be the gene pool frequency in the next generation, assuming the evolution does not occur? If it does not occur, what happens? The frequencies do not change. The frequencies will remain the same. Now let's take a look on the number 10. Any questions, any problems on number 9 before we'll proceed? I really want you to understand where any of those numbers came from. If you have a question, we can do it 2 ways. It's either you can ask it right now versus via direct message to me, or you can stay later on after the lab. Probably will finish, hopefully we'll finish it a little bit earlier, and you can drill me on those particular numbers again. Okay, I'll move on to number 10. So number 10 is a little bit more different, but in this particular case, assuming Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, a certain population has 16%. That's a number, important. So of the population has recessive phenotype. See right there, recessive phenotype. As soon as it's a recessive phenotype, we start talking about recessive genotype, because recessive genotype will show up as the recessive phenotype. Hairless bunny, FF, lower cases. So now we can say that essentially recessive phenotype 16% is our Q square. So if our Q square is 16%, we also can eliminate the percentage and says that it's a point, oops, not 0.16. Everybody see how I got from the problem? As soon as I know that, if I am square rooting the 0.16, I will get with, so my Q would be equal 0.4. Square root of 0.16 will be 0.4. Now, if I know that my Q is 0.4, my P have to be equal to what? P plus Q equal 1. If Q is 0.4, 0.6, excellent. So far, so good, right? Easy, if you're following the logic. Now, if I know that, you know that, we can figure it out P squared. P squared will be 0.6 squared, which will end up being 0.36. Oops, not comma, 0.36. Or we can record it as 36%. Everybody see how I got to those numbers? Any questions, any problems? 2PQ. Again, for some of the students, it's a little bit difficult, but so let me write it down. 2 times, what's our P? We just figured it out, it's 0.6. And then it will be times, literally times, our Q, and Q was 0.4, which will be equal to, 2 times 0.6 is 0.12. 0.12 times 0.4 would be 0.48, or 48%. Now I'll stop. Why will I stop? Because I want to double check. P squared plus 2PQ plus Q squared equal 1. P squared, 0.36, plus 2PQ, 0.48. 0.48 plus 0.36 will give me 0.84. 0.84 plus 0.16, yes, 1. I did my math correctly. Now we're running into exactly the same problem of 50 individuals. See, 50 individuals. And we're looking at the dominant phenotype. Excellent. Which percentages will contribute to the dominant phenotype? Is P squared contributing to the dominant phenotype? Yes. Let me highlight it differently. So that's our dominant. 2PQ, our heterozygous, because it has a P, it's also contributing to the dominant phenotype, how it looks like. So 48% and 36. So that, in this particular case, I will have 84% of the population, whatever the population is. I know that 84% of the population will look dominant. My population is 50. So in order to convert that, all I need to do is essentially take the 0.84. I took the percent out and multiplying it by my population. My population is 50. So in this particular case, what we will end up with? 42. 42 individuals will look like a dominant phenotype. And 16% out of 50 would be 8. So total 58 8 people will look like a recessive phenotype. Any questions, any problems? All right. Hopefully no questions, no problems. Once again, if you are confused where I got those numbers from, email, talk to me after the lab, or I will be on in my office on Monday. Feel free to swing by. I'm available. Email, and then we'll figure it out. Zoom, I can do the Zoom meeting with you, etc. So, but that's really crucial because we'll go over that during the common assignment as well. All right. So primate evolution. Yay, primates. So talking about the absolute dating, molecular analysis, all of those things are covered in the video as well. That's why I highly recommend you to watch that particular video. Besides, you'll have a grade. And in this particular case, there is several features of the skull which you need to know. You need to memorize because on the lab practical, you will see the picture of the skull, and then there will be an arrow pointing and it will say, name the feature. The features are, there is generally 5 main features, which you need to, well, brain case, I presume everybody understand that. So the 5 features which you need to know. First of all is the brow ridge. Brow ridge, and you'll see, I'll show you some of the skulls where the brow ridge is very, very prominent. Okay, now there is a sagittal crest. Do humans have a sagittal crest? No. There will be like a mohawk of the bone. It's actual bone where the muscles, the masseters, the chewing muscles are attached, and I'll tell you why it's very important. So those particular bones or muscles which are moving the lower jaw is attaching. So sagittal crest. So we're talking about sometimes referred to as the cranial ridge or sagittal crest. So we're talking about sagittal crest, brow ridge, okay? Then there is a zygomatic bone right here, or sometimes it's referred zygomatic arch. Those particular bone, this is where the chewing muscles going through. The size of the zygomatic bone is very important in the human evolution overall. So we got our sagittal crest, we got our brow ridge, we got our zygomatic bone. Then if you flip the skull, give me a second, I'll bring it one. Aha. Good thing I was able to borrow. So here we go, the skull, human skull. It's a replica, it's not real human skull. So no sagittal crest, no brow ridge, we flat face. Then we have that particular bone right here. That's the zygomatic bone. Okay. Then there is also something which is known as a snout. Okay. 1 second, please. In comparison, here we go. We have another skull. I have another skull. So here we have the sagittal crest, zygomatic bone, or zygomatic arch. Look, the skull is much smaller, but the zygomatic arch is much bigger, meaning more muscles were coming through that particular arch. And then, of course, a very prominent brow ridge. So sagittal crest, brow ridge, zygomatic bone, now snout. Look at the faces, so to speak. We are flat face. This one has a snout. Very important in the determination if the creature is quadrupedal, will have a snout. Flat face, most likely a bipedal creature. And finally, so again, 5 features: sagittal crest, zygomatic bone, brow ridge, snout, and the final one right here. Yeah, right there. The hole right there, known as foraminum magnum. Foraminum literally from the Latin means hole, magnum means large, large hole. Quick tip for the lab practical: if you completely forget the you know, sometimes the term just escapes you, like, I'm freaking out, I don't remember that particular large hole, but I don't remember the actual name. At least write down a large hole. I will understand that you know what it is. It just, well, the term escaped you. So now let's take a look why this particular thing is important. This is basically how the spine connects to the brain, right? Spinal cord connects to the brain. So now, if the creature is quadrupedal, if it's a quadrupedal, the spine comes at the angle. The overall foraminum magnum will be shifted toward the back of the skull. All right, makes sense? Now, if the creature is bipedal, if you'll try to do it at the angle, it does not go. See, right there. It's kind of centered side, and then it will be literally or vertically aligned right there. So the location of foraminum magnum can tell us from the skull, from the existing skull, or from the skull of some sort of fossil skulls, fossilized skull. We can tell more or less if it's being a bipedal or quadrupedal creature. And that's very important in the evolution of the human beings. Why? Because bipedalism essentially started it all. We are who we are because we are our ancestors, not humans yet, but our ancestors start working or start walking on twos. And then we have those two hands to do all kinds of things. And that's really important part. So any questions, any problems on that? So 5 things, features which you need to know. I understand the upper jaw and lower jaw. I'm not going over that. I don't think there will be a question like this, but you need to know sagittal crest, zygomatic arch, snout. You will need to know brow ridge, and you need to know, need to be able to recognize the foraminum magnum. So yeah, eye sockets, yeah, zygomatic bone. We talk about the foraminum magnum. All good. Brain case. The size of the brain. See, that's a chimp skull, a male. That's a human skull. Whose brain is bigger? Humans. Does it matter? Yes, it does. Is humans are smart? Yes. What about the chimpanzees? One of our adjuncts, he is a full-timer in the zoo. He is a zoo curator, a Houston zoo curator. And we were talking about the chimpanzees, and he's like, I never want to be a curator of the apes. I'm like, why? Kind of fun, right? And he's like, no, they mean. I'm like, what do you mean they mean? He's like, yeah, they're vicious creatures. They're really smart. They have all the time of the world. They kind of bored, so they get you. I mean, they get the curators just for fun of it. He's like, I don't want to deal with those particular creatures. So in this particular case, and by the way, the volume of the chimpanzee Skull is about 400 or so cubic centimeters comparatively to ours, which is almost, well, we are on average 1450 cubic centimeters. We almost quadruple the amount of brain comparatively to chimpanzees. So we consider to be a much smart. So now, brain case, already talked about that. Sagittal crest. Sagittal crest, you can see that I don't have a gorilla skull. In the gorilla skull, it's very prominent, but it kind of tells us about the diet, because this is how the muscles go through and attach to the top of the skull. If I have a lot of muscles, I don't have a lot of brain. So it's either muscle versus brain. Plus, it tells me what exactly that creature is eating. Why? Well, in order to have a large, if it has the large muscles, it means that it's chewing a lot. If it's chewing a lot for the apes or ape hominids, essentially, it means that it's predominantly eating vegetarian food. Gorilla are vegetarians, essentially. Gorilla chew out of its waking hours. Basically roaming around for about 16 hours a day. For completely 16 hours, it chews its food even when it's asleep, occasionally. Up to 19 hours of non-stop chewing. Why? Because it's processing that particular food. The plant food is very, very hard. We need to break it down. As a result, huge muscles, not as a big of a brain. Okay? So that basically tells us a little bit about the diet. Snout, the presence of snout, flat face or snout. If I have a snout, whenever without the snout with a flat face, I'm sitting down looking straight at the camera, right? And I can see what's happening pretty much right at my feet. I don't have to move my hand down, or especially when I'm standing. If I'm standing, whenever I'm walking, with my peripheral vision, I literally see what's happening at my feet. If there is any bumps, if there is any danger, if there is a snake or anything like that. I don't have to physically look down all the time. Now, if I have a snout, let's say at those particular hands, my snout, my field of vision down decreased drastically. I can kind of see pretty much half of my screen. I cannot see what's happening there. In order to see what's happening literally at my feet, I will have literally look down. So the snout presence, or how prominent the snout is, can tell me if it's a bipedal or quadrupedal. And again, foraminum magnum, if it's situated closer to the end of the skull, that's most likely a quadrupedal creature. The vertebral column enters like this because the creature is walking on its fours because of the snout. Human, we're standing upright, we are bipedal, and the vertebral column enters at its essentially 90 degrees, and this particular foraminum magnum situated closer to the center of the skull. Make sense? Moving on. All right, wonderful, wonderful kind of tree, very simplified tree of the hominids. So in this particular case, ancestral primate, some sort of ape which no longer exists, started it all and started spreading out. There was some of those probably went into Asia, evolved into orangutan, gibbons, etc. And this is a little bit deceptive. It kind of shows that somewhere around 7 million of years ago, we separated and chimpanzees become a chimpanzee. No, that's not exactly it. Chimpanzee has its own tree just for the saving the space, same thing as a gorilla. They had the evolutionary tree, they had some sort of missing links or fossilized ancestor of the chimpanzees, but in this particular lab, we're not focusing on those. The main idea is you don't see the chimpanzee evolving directly into a human being. We didn't. We separated from the ancestor, our common ancestor between the modern chimpanzees and modern human, roughly 6-7 millions of years ago. If you'll take a chimpanzee right now, a population of chimpanzee, put them on a desert island, feed them and do whatever, they will not evolve into human beings. They might evolve into something else, but not human beings. So please don't give me that example as the example of the process of evolution. It kind of innates the chimpanzee in me. I start yelling, screaming at the screen, and yes, throwing things, scaring my dog, yeah, all that stuff. So, and we didn't evolve from gorilla either. So please don't give me that particular example, please. All right, so now let's take a look on our tree. We're looking at Chelanthropus. They're talking about Chelanthropus chadensis in the video as well. That's one of the first. It's still controversial. Was it on our line or was it some sort of other hominid? Don't know for sure. Same thing with Adripithecus. But those creatures most likely were bipedal. Where we know for sure that most likely, well, not for sure 100%, but most likely Australopithecus afarensis was one of those creatures which discovered roughly 4 million of years ago. Well, it lived about 4 million of years ago. It was kind of a mixture. I think video is saying amalgam, the merging of what? Of the ape and the human features. If you look at the reconstruction, or let's say you are riding the bus and there is the Australopithecus afarensis right next to you, you will know for sure it's not human being. You will know for, even though it will be groomed and washed and everything, you will know for sure it's not human being, not whatsoever. It will be shorter, not even size-wise. It will look more like an ape than the human being. However, that particular ape creature was walking on twos. The pelvic bones, as well as the knee bones, tells us that it was a bipedal creature. That's why most likely this is one of our ancestors. And then Australopithecus afarensis went into Australopithecus, evolved into Africanus, very similar, and probably somewhere here there might be some other creatures before that, but this is where our initial ancestors start, somewhere around 2 million of years ago, Homo habilis. This is officially the first representative of our genus known as a Homo, means human. Habilis means skillful. Remember bipedalism? Front paws, now hands, have to do something. That particular creature was not very fast. It was not very vicious, no claws, no teeth. It started using, actively making and using stone tools. It was a tool maker. That's why it's a habilis. It's a skillful. It started making the tools which it started actively using. Chimpanzees using tools, it can grab the, let's say, a branch and start poking some sort of insects with it. Some of the birds can take the short branch and start poking insects with that. That's the use of tools. The habilis start making tools. That's a very, very important difference. Australopithecus, as far as we understand, they were not a maker of tools. So Homo habilis, making tools, tool maker. As it starts making tools, there is a couple of things happening. Speaking of which, the brain case of those creatures are about 400 to 600 cubic centimeters, so not very large brain. Now, in Homo habilis, it starts making tools. First of all, very nice eye-to-hand coordination. That's a part of the brain. Second of all, you need to know what kind of, because not all of the rocks will be good for making tools. You need to know or figured it out logically, what kind of rocks to make, and then you have to teach. This is where the institution of school starts. You have to teach the future generations on how to make tools. As a result, brains start increasing in size. The increase in size of the brain created a problem. The big brain baby cannot go through the birth canal. Can't. And this is the ergaster and Homo erectus. Erectus means upright. Ergaster means working man. Sometimes they are combined into the same species. But those particular guys, erectus / ergaster, or whichever you prefer, they did a very interesting leap. Using the tools now, they changed the diet. They start actively from the gatherer, they start actively hunting animals. From the essentially vegetarians, we went into the omnivores, using the tools and specific techniques, strategies on how to hunt in African savanna. By that time, our ancestor losing most of its hair, of fur. Why? To cool down more efficiently. Think about it. Middle of the day in Africa, similar to probably Houston, middle of the day, near 100 degrees Fahrenheit, hot, very sunny. If we are furred creatures, well, my dog run around couple of minutes and then it's panting completely. Well, my little one, he is a runner, he can run no problem because we have more efficient cooling. And this is what ergaster come up with. Very interesting strategy. Some of the tribes are still using it. In the middle of the day, the hunter will find, let's say, an antelope, and it will start running toward the antelope. Antelope, of course, will get spooked and will run away. Our ancestors or hunter will kind of look over, track it down, and continue to run. Middle of the day, we are efficiently cooling. We have less exposed body to the sun. We are cooling off efficiently. We can run. We're running. The antelope is spooked again. We continue to run. Spooked again. Continue to run until the antelope literally completely exhausted and it's in a heat shock. It cannot move, it cannot do anything. It's heat exhaustion. So our hunter comes in and kills the antelope. More than that, besides that switch to the meat, very soon those particular creatures come up with the idea that, you know what, the meat is good, but cooked meat even better. So that was the first barbecue guy or first cook ever. They start cooking. As a result, our muscles, the chewing muscles, start decreasing in size. We have a much energy, more efficient food, meat versus plants. We don't have chew as much, and it's much softer because now it's cooked. As our muscles recede, our brain literally explode in sizes from 450 cubic centimeters to 600 to 800, 900 cubic centimeters, which created a problem. Baby cannot go through the birth canal. We have to give the premature baby to the birth, meaning that the baby will be born completely helpless. And again, we are talking about those particular 2 or so millions of years ago, which started the next trend, taking care of the little ones. We have not only taking care, it takes the village to raise a kid, right? Exactly. We have to raise the kid, we have to teach them stuff. As a result, we have to communicate with them. In the chimpanzees, 2 or 3 years old chimpanzee is already productive member of the society. 10, 15-year-old chimpanzees already have kids or maybe even grandkids. I have two boys, 12 and 15. And not very much of the productive members of the society. Still have to tell them to brush your teeth, put the deodorant on every morning. Not they do anything, but it takes much longer for the human being to develop fully. Why? Because we are essentially being born premature, without much of the knowledge, without much of the instincts. Why? Because of our big brain. Our brain, human brain, basically doubles within the first year. So first year in human life is crucial. Like in Korean cultures, they don't really celebrate, well, they do celebrate the birthday, but traditionally, until the baby is 1 year old, they were not giving the name to the baby, as far as I know. Because, well, if you survive the first year, yes. Before then, just a baby. And here and now you are blah, blah, whatever it might be. So very important things happening here, which is actually reflected in nowadays modern world of humans. You are in the institution, educational institution. I'm teaching you. This is where it starts. We are periodically going to the restaurant, so we're cooking the food ourselves. This is where it started. We are using tools, computers, whatever. This is where it started. And I can go with tons of other things, which starting point was somewhere here. That's why it's the first group known as the Homo, a human skillful, human working. He also conquered the fire, by the way. Well, start using the fire. Homo erectus, upright. Now, Homo heidelbergensis, there is quite a few, up to 30 different branches. Homo heidelbergensis. That particular guy, if you reconstruct, put it right next to you in the bus, I probably would not be able to recognize him from a typical human being. Who was very similar to us, give the branch to two different species. Homo sapiens, we started in Africa, and the Homo neanderthalensis probably started somewhere around, we split around 500,000 years ago. They probably started somewhere in Europe. Larger, bigger creatures than us. They were very well adapted to the northern climate. It was an ice age. So northerners and the southerners. And then Homo sapiens tried to come out of the Africa, met the Neanderthalensis. Neanderthalensis say, nope, we are doing the same thing. You stay in Africa, I'll stay here. Well, it's not, didn't say, but we were waging the war, and wave after wave after wave of human Homo sapiens. The sapiens means wise. So wise humans, us, tried to come out, and Neanderthalensis were stopping us, where they were waging the war, and because they were larger, bigger, stronger, and what's really interesting, probably smarter. Humans, typical human has about 1450 cubic centimeters of brain. Homo neanderthalensis about 1600. So they were stopping us at least 5 waves. They stopped until, and this is a theory, but it's a really nice one. I like it, so I will introduce it to you. Until we domesticated dogs. Dog was a super weapon against the Neanderthalensis. As far as we know, Neanderthals never domesticated dogs. We did. As a result, we had a great trackers. So if Neanderthals somewhere around, we can track them and we can kill them. And the alarm system. If the Neanderthals are coming, dogs smelling them, they start barking, and we can gather our tribe to fend off those Neanderthals. And of course, since we are close related species, we were enslaving some of the Neanderthals, we were mating with them. That's why on average in a human being, we have somewhere around 1 to 5% of Neanderthalensis DNA. There is also a possibility that another creature went into the Asia known as the Denisovians. We don't know much about those guys. There is like a part of the pinky and a couple of molars has been discovered in a remote cave in Siberia. But that's a very different genetic makeup, and they probably went into Tibet, and there is the Tibetans who might have some of the Denisovians DNA. But this is a very quick kind of intro to what was happening here. Now let's take a look at that particular branch. So we have a branch out which we killed, Neanderthalensis. So as soon as the humans show up, Neanderthalensis cease to exist, we kill them. And then there is another dead branch, so Australopithecus afarensis. The Africa or African continent was going through the global climate change. From the lush forest, it started changing into a more or less tropical savanna, grasslands. And on the grasslands, bipedal creatures have advantage. Well, first of all, less exposure to the sun. And there is another one. Well, second of all, if you're walking on a long distances, you're spending less energy when you're walking on twos rather than on fours. By large distances, we're talking about over 3 miles or so. And thirdly, when you're standing upright, you can see further. And some students are kind of confused. I'm like, well, what if I'll see further? Well, you can see any kind of dangers. Let's say a prehistoric line. Yes, if I'm standing myself in the middle of the savannah, in the middle of the grassland, and I see the lion crouching on me and hunting me down, I'm a dead person. I will not be able to outrun the lion. That's given. Now, let's say there is 2 of us, me and bipedal and my quadrupedal cousin. All right, we all gather stuff around, and then since I'm bipedal, I see further away, I see the lion. Now I don't have to outrun the lion. I have to outrun my quadrupedal cousin. I'm simplifying, but that's generally how the bipedalism probably get to, well, evolved. Essentially, so if I'm outrunning my quadrupedal creature, well, cousin, I will survive, I will be able to reproduce, and therefore send that particular gene into the future generations. So now, let's take a look at those creatures. Remember, I told you muscle versus brain. We looked at the brainiacs of the evolution. That particular Australopithecus were kind of at the crossroads, and nature, God, whichever you prefer, played a very interesting trick. It says, okay, well, you will be a smarty ones, and you will be a muscular ones, and we'll see who will win under those particular conditions. They didn't really cross each other, they didn't really fight with each other, but those ones known as a paranthropus. Para means near, anthropos means man, near man, the parallel evolution. But those particular guys, specifically Homo, they went for brain, reduction of the muscles. Those guys went for the muscles, keeping the brain relatively small. We are here, they are not. They are dead end of the evolution, they died off. They were much stronger, much bigger. They were predominantly vegetarian, so they chewed a lot. But in this particular case, they ceased to exist somewhere around 2 million years ago. All right, pre-lab questions. What is the scientific name for humans, genus and species? The genus is Homo. Let me type it in. Homo. Genus is Homo. Genus is always capitalized, and technically it should be italicized as well, showing that it's a Latin name. And then wise, human who are wise. We are wise humans, if you didn't know that. So sometimes, you know, I'm not that sapiens. No, sapiens. Yep, I think this is it. Here we go. Homo sapiens. Both of those needs to be italicized. We'll talk about that next lecture. Italicized, and the genus name showing that it's a genus. Homo means human, sapiens means species identifier. What science studies hominid evolution? Technically anthropology. What three types of data used to determine hominid evolutionary relationship? The absolute data, absolute date, how old they are, molecular analysis, if we have that, and also anatomy, morphological anatomy. It's not. That should be page 5. I don't think there is. Oh, yeah, there is. No, it's either 4. No, 5. 5 will do. So this particular evolutionary. Are we absolutely sure? No, we're not. We are discovering new missing links all the time, pretty much. What is the name of the oldest species found on this particular phylogenetic tree? This guy right here, the lower on the branch. So that would be Chelanthropus chadensis. Was found in the Republic of Chad. Approximately how many millions of years ago did humans and apes have a common ancestor? See right there, ancestral primate. Over 7.5, 8 millions of years ago. Approximately how many millions of years ago did humans and Neanderthals have a common ancestor? We are separated, Heidelbergensis separated, or we separated from the tree roughly 500,000, 500 millions of years ago. Oh, 500,000 of years ago, not millions. So 500,000. What does it indicate? That foraminum magnum located near the rear of the skull. Near the rear of the skull means it is most likely a quadrupedal. Where is sagittal crest located? Top of the skull. Right here, you can see. This is the sagittal crest. How macroevolution is different from microevolution? Microevolution is evolution, genetic changes of frequencies on the population scale. Macroevolution, species enough. So now, what are some advantages to walk upright? I just told you about that. Less energy spent when you're walking upright comparatively to the quadrupedal. You can see further, easier to grab any kind of low-hanging fruits. You can gather stuff and carry them. Right? So this is basically the first table, and this is what we'll see. So gorilla first, this particular creature, very, very strong creature. So they went all muscle. You can see the prominent brow ridge. I haven't talked about the brow ridge, but we'll get there momentarily when I'll show you the skull itself. So here we have the gorilla. And look at the gorilla skull on the side, or specifically, you see that structure right here? That's the sagittal crest. Now, brow ridge. See how big the brow ridge is? And the muscles from the lower jaw goes through the huge, I can literally put my hand through that particular zygomatic opening to attach muscles to the sagittal crest. Now, why the brow ridge is important? It's essentially reinforcing the skull. What does it mean? The muscles are so strong that without the reinforcement, if somehow would be able to put the gorilla muscle on a human face, on a human skull, the first time you're biting something, the muscles contract and they literally crush the skull because we don't have that particular support or armor for the skull. Make sense? So a large brow ridge saying most likely that particular creature has a fairly strong chewing muscles as well. If you'll say the sagittal crest, you don't want to get bitten by that particular creature. Yeah, if you'll have a chance between bitten by a human and bitten by the gorilla, gorilla can literally bite through the hand, bite the hand off, even though, again, vegetarian-ish. All right. So here we have, this is the gorilla, and you can see that the sagittal, the foraminum magnum is kind of toward the back of the skull. So we have, on that particular picture here, we have, this is the gorilla, the top right, the bottom left is chimpanzee. All right. This is a female. Females don't really have the sagittal crest, but you can still see a very large brow ridge, also a snout, most likely a quadrupedal creature. Well, we know it's a quadrupedal creature. And you can see that the foraminum magnum is not at the center. Now, Australopithecus africanus, that particular bottom right part, you need to write down the name, and also some students like, what do I need to write here? You can write whatever will help you to recognize the skull, whatever you will think is important for that particular creature. I generally will not ask the creature, name that skull. No. It most likely will ask which genus it belongs to. Or if you will see a couple of skulls, like for example, the Australopithecus, and then the Robustus, and then the human skull, it will ask you on a lab practical, which one is the oldest? Well, the first one. Which one is the earliest in evolution, means the oldest one. So you need to be able to compare and contrast the skulls. So in this particular case, Australopithecus, as you can see, if you look at the skull of the Australopithecus comparatively to the skull of the chimpanzee, they're very similar, yet less prominent snout. They were more flat-faced. As a result, most likely they were a bipedal creature. Same thing with Africanus. So which of those skulls have sagittal crest? Gorilla has a sagittal crest, and technically males chimpanzees, but you don't see it right here. So to avoid confusion, let's say gorilla for sure. What is the oldest species represented in on this table? Well, the oldest one probably would be this guy. Well, the infamous Lucy, right? Which of those species are direct in the human descent? Most likely that guy and probably this guy. Africanus, and then here we have the Africanus, and you can clearly see that it doesn't look like human. And then, of course, we have the Afarensis. Afarensis, Lucy, anybody knows the story about the Lucy, why she called Lucy? The anthropologists who were working, whenever they were discovering her, they had the tape playing a recorder, famous Beatles song, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. So they called her Lucy. And Lucy is, she was discovered in Ethiopia. She is considered to be a national treasure of that particular country. And the very first time she ever left Ethiopia, the Museum of National Museum of Science of Ethiopia, the very first world trip, her very first step was in Houston, Texas. Yay, a couple of 15 years ago. Was very exciting time when you can go and see the actual bones, fragments of the bones of it. Anyway, next one, the Paranthropuses. Remember we were talking about the guys who are, that's still Lucy. Now Paranthropuses, very, very large, prominent sagittal crest, all of them. You can see the sagittal crest right here. You can see the sagittal crest right there. You can see a sagittal crest right there. So again, small brain, lots of muscles, and also look at those lower jaws, very, very massive. Most likely vegetarians, not much of the brain. They're still smart. I'm not saying they're not smart, they are, but they went all muscles and eventually they died off. There is over 6-7 discovered species of the Paranthropuses. So in this particular case, we have Paranthropus robustus, as you not a human being for sure. Right there. So that's the skull. Oh, replica of the skull, of course. But again, very, very massive lower jaw. Paranthropus boisei, again, not a human-looking creature, most likely a bipedal, by the way. Snout is almost, well, it has a very flat face. Very strong brow ridge and also sagittal crest, and the huge lower jaw tells us that most likely we're a vegetarian guy. Plant diet, and this is the Ethiopicus, or sometimes referred to as a black skull. Whenever it was discovered, the minerals fused it with the black color. So in this particular case, again, very, very prominent sagittal crest and quite a large snout. Most likely was the bipedal as well. So, but again, went all muscles, died off. So what the features, what do all those skulls have in common? Sagittal crest and very, very robust brow ridges. What does it tell us about the diet? Most likely they were vegetarian. Which of those species is the common ancestor of the other two? So in this particular case, you're going back to that particular thing, and you can see Afarensis Ethiopicus, the black skull, this guy, which give us robustus and boisei. So Ethiopicus most likely was the ancestor giving the branching out to, well, to several other species of the Paranthropuses. All right. Do you think this species was bipedal or quadrupedal? The lack of snout tells us that it most likely were bipedal creatures. Now, Homo species, that's a very interesting point right there. As you can see, look, Homo ergaster were living in Africa really nicely, actually spread into the Asia as well, and was populating Europe as well. But as soon as Homo sapiens came in, we killed the Homo ergaster most likely, possibly even a Homo habilis, but for sure Homo erectus with ergaster, we killed those. As a matter of fact, we almost certain of that. But for sure, we are the responsible ones who killed the Neanderthalensis. So as soon as we start seeing the Homo sapiens arriving on that particular planet, the other hominid species are declining drastically. So here what we have, Homo habilis, again, skillful. The skull looks very similar or a little bit larger than the specifically brain case, but not as much difference between the, not Paranthropus, Australopithecus. But again, that guy, wash it off, kinda, you will already see it's more human than the ape-like. Weird human, but already a human. Tool maker, one of the first actively making tools, teaching. This is where the school starts for the little Homo habilis, kids of Homo habilis, like, no, I don't want to make any more stone tools. Oh, you have to go and gather some rocks. This is the wrong rock. You're getting an F. No eating today, right? Yeah, all that stuff start. See how long ago? Several millions of years ago. We're still teaching ourselves to do whatever we're doing. So in this particular case, this is the skull right here, and that would be this guy right there. This is the Homo habilis. All right. Now, again, the skull is very similar to the Australopithecus, but a little bit larger whenever you see it actually, and you can clearly see that the foraminum magnum situated at the center. Snout is not very prominent. Still have a brow ridge, but definitely no sagittal crest. Now, Homo erectus. This guy right here still have the fairly large brow ridge, a relatively strong lower jaw, and the Homo erectus probably will be on the next page. Yeah, this is the Homo erectus right there. Quite often, Homo erectus combined together with the Homo robustus. They're saying that the erectus started, conquer the fire, start hunting, eating, change the diet, start eating more meat food than the plant food, start cooking. As a result, the species was the same, just some of the features of the skull changed. It became more human-like, so to speak, less brow ridge, a larger brain case, smaller jaw, because the food become much softer comparatively to the raw food, so to speak. So yeah, this is the erectus right now. I put them in two different species. This is the robustus. Oops. Oh, ergaster. Sorry, ergaster. So here we have the ergaster, and ergaster means working human. So they start working, actively hunting, actively cooking. And again, the brain size is increasing. That particular guy next to you on the bus might raise some eyebrows, but you will know it's a human being. Weird looking guy, but still already a human being. Before Paranthropus, you can definitely say it's not human. Now, yeah, this is one of two species which might be the same. We're not 100% sure. So, but you can clearly see the bipedal, the brain case is increasing to 900 cubic centimeters to 1,000. As a result, yes, the babies are born premature, so to speak. They underdeveloped, so they birth. Well, after the birth, you have to take care. They're completely helpless. You have to teach all of them. Well, typical human babies, so to speak. And then, of course, we go into a Heidelbergensis. And Heidelbergensis, this is the guy right here, that one. Still a fairly prominent brow ridge, but those ones were up to probably 1,200 cubic centimeters. Smart guys, spread out on 3 continents, if I remember correctly. Yes, so we could find them in the Europe, which gave us the Homo neanderthalensis. The one which stays in the Africa give us Homo sapiens, and Asian ones, not really sure, probably died off. There is an idea that this one gave us the Denisovians, which I was talking about before. That's a relatively new discovered, probably a species of the hominids. So here, as you can see, very large skull, much smaller teeth comparatively to, so yes, mixed diet. The vegetarians of the past now, they are actively cooking, they barbecuing, they're using the fire and so on and so forth. Now Neanderthalensis, that guy, wash it, cut the hair, you will not be able to tell that it's not human. Very similar to us, we were able to interbreed, no problem whatsoever. Evolved in Europe, stays in Europe, and as you can see, whenever we start coming out and conquering the Europe, we were fighting those particular guys. And basically they extinct about some people saying about 30,000 years ago, which is basically not that long ago. So here we have the creature which we compete against and we kill them, interspecies war. And then finally, we have Cro-Magnons, which is actually humans, early humans. So this is the skull. So here we're looking at the skull of the Neanderthalensis. So here we have Neanderthalensis, and then the Cro-Magnons. Cro-Magnons are already humans. That's a Homo sapiens. They belong to us. It's just early one. So the skull features is a little bit still kind of rough, but about the same brain case, about the same size of the jaw, and so on and so forth. So those ones were humans. You're putting this guy or girl next to you on the bus, you will not be able to tell the difference. I will not be able to tell the difference. They were actual humans. Cro-Magnon, Cro-Magnon is a part of the France where those skulls has been found. All right. So which of those species are earliest or oldest? That would be the habilis. Which of the species most closely related to humans? Most likely Neanderthalensis. Which of those species is not directly in the human evolution? Dead end. That would be Neanderthalensis because we killed them. Which of those species may actually be the same? The Erectus and the Ergaster. Examine the skulls. Examine the skulls of the two species you just identify, Ergaster and the Erectus. How are they similar? About the same brain case, about the same features of the skull overall. How are they different? The Ergaster skull is more refined, less brow ridge, smaller lower jaw. What do you think? Are they the same or different species? Up to you. Give me your, I'm reading the whatever you will be submitting, and those labs first and the second due Sunday at 11:59. I'm reading all of those, so please tell me, do you think they are same? Do you think they are different? How you can support that? Please give me why. Remember, Dr. Why? Yeah, my favorite question. Now, fill out the relevant rows on page number 12. Here we have quite a few questions regarding that particular page, this table. And I will talk to you about this. I'll give you the examples. So I don't really need the actual numbers, the sagittal crest, or what's the size of the snout, or anything like that. Teeth, what the size of the teeth. Brain case, size and the forehead, relatively small. Chimpanzee, relatively small, about 400 cubic centimeters. Paranthropus, well, this one, Afarensis, relatively small. Comparatively to the other animals, it's a huge one. Paranthropus also small, or relatively small. Habilis becomes kind of a medium size, mid-size. Homo heidelbergensis large. Homo neanderthalensis very large, or the largest one. No, very largest. That's a good English grammar. Largest, large. Now, you got that particular column. Now, let's go with the row. Sagittal crest, yes. No, no. Well, chimpanzee, we decide no. Australopithecus afarensis, no. Boisei, yes. No, 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 no. Zygomatic arch, size, again. And now you're looking at the brain case. If it's a small, most likely that would be large. And that would be large as well. That one would be large. That one would be large. It's either, remember, muscles or brain. In this particular case, zygomatic arch is the bone where the muscles coming through. See, in this particular case, even though the skull is much smaller, I can fit 3 fingers, basically 4 fingers through the zygomatic arch of chimpanzee. Now, human zygomatic arch, I barely can fit only 2. So Homo habilis, medium. Homo heidelbergensis, small, small, and small. Brow ridge, present. Or prominent. Let's go with it. Prominent. Snout, present or prominent. Teeth, large. And of course, if you'll run into any kind of problems, you're not really sure, you want me to double check before the deadline on Sunday, not at 11:59 saying, hey, can you double check my table? I probably will not be able to answer on time. But if you want to, like on a Saturday, shoot me an email. I most likely will be answered within 24 hours. Foraminum magnum location. Since gorilla is a quadruped, it would be where? Back of the skull. Oh, we can say back. Oh, we can say to the back. And we presume it's a back of the skull. So any quadrupeds, and we have out of the quadrupeds, we have gorilla and chimpanzee. Everybody else would be most likely a biped, so it would be center. Of the skull. Make sense? So any questions, any problems on that? So all you need to do is finish that one. Now describe the trends you observe. It's up to you. Brain case. I'll just give you an example. Brain case. Brain case from the ancestral primate to the modern man, it's increasing. It's drastically increasing. It's goes from 400 cubic centimeters to 1400 cubic centimeters. Literally explode our brain. Sagittal crest getting reduced, right? Zygomatic arch becoming smaller. Brow ridge almost non-existent in humans. We don't have to support those chewing muscles. Snout, no snout face, no snout. We are flat-faced. Teeth, smaller, much smaller comparatively even to the chimpanzees. Look at those particular teeth right there. See, especially check the canines right there. The canines are very different. Foramen magnum, from the back moving to the center, from the back moving to the center. All right, post-lab review. Name 2 hominids we look today, not our ancestor, because they are evolutionary dead ends. We talk about the Paranthropus, right? Not in our direct line. And then, of course, the Neanderthalensis, which we killed about 30, 40,000 years ago, last one. Which of non-Homo sapiens examined are closest relatives to the humans? Non-Homo sapiens or non-Homo sapiens, the closest one was the Neanderthalensis. What was the oldest species we looked today? It was Sahelanthropus chadensis. Well, in the lab, we're actually looking at the chadensis. I brought that up. But in this particular lab, the oldest one we looked at was the Lucy, right? So Afarensis. Either or, the answers will do just fine. If you can go with that one, we do have in the lab. I don't think. Do I have the? Oh, here we go. Here's the chadensis. Yes. So Sahelanthropus chadensis would be about 7 million of years old, and it was skewed. It was deformed because, again, it spent about 7 million of years in the ground. So yeah, definitely not a human being. So yeah, chadensis would be the correct answer. I don't think, do we have a, oh, Ramidus. Well, the Ramidus was about 4.55 million of years ago. But that particular creature, Ramidus, most likely were the creature of the forest, so tropical forest, yet most likely was a bipedal creature. So anyway, let me kind of go back to this one, to the questions. What changes do you see in the size of the zygomatic arch in the species most closely related to the humans? It's decreasing in size drastically because we are reducing the muscles, right? I know a guy, it's not, he's not really my friend, he is the former husband of one of my wife's best friends. He is on a special type of the diet, nothing really wrong with him, physically at least, but he do not consume, he decides for himself, he do not consume hard food. He is blending pretty much everything and he's drinking everything. So you go into the restaurant with him, he will bring his own stuff and he is drinking, and yeah, he is not consuming it. So reduction of the hard food, so to speak. He's saying that it's much better for his stomach. So anyway, so in this particular case, zygomatic arch drastically reduced because of the change of the diet. From the predominantly plant food, we went into the cooked and the mixed food or omnivore food. What changes do you see in placement of foramen magnum? From the back of the skull toward the center of the skull, bipedalism, very important. Which came first, Australopithecus afarensis or Homo habilis? Afarensis probably give us the habilis, so afarensis is the older species. Which two fossils might or might not belong to the same species? That's Erectus and Ergaster. Homo, Erectus, Homo, Ergaster. What species, which species first upright? You can give me an answer of the Australopithecus, which will be okay, and or this guy, Adripithecus, was most likely a bipedal creature. And we don't know if it's in our line of the evolution or not. So either or will do okay. What are some morphological differences between the Homo sapiens and Homo neanderthalensis? Homo neanderthalensis were bigger. They were more adapted to the colder climates, and they had bigger brain. Yet, I guess they were not as sneaky as we are. We domesticated those dogs, and here we go. We are ruling the planet for now. Distinguish between hominids and hominins. That's up to you. Look it up. I can tell you, but I really want for you to look it up. I think in the beginning of the description, it's talking about that somewhere. Something hominins, hominids. Because quite often people are flipping and flopping those words. That's why I'm not giving you the direct answer. Look it up, please. Determine on the diagram from page 5 how long ago African apes ancestor and humans split away. Well, that's relatively easy, right? 7.5 if you want to be on the safe side. 8 millions of years ago, somewhere between 7 to 8 millions of years, probably, give or take a million of years. And then your favorite reflection questions. They will be on every single test. And again, reflection questions, briefly describe. And I think it says now, I think in your lab, it actually says brief in the complete sentences and at least a paragraph. I think I add that one up later on. So yeah, please kind of tell me, what do you think we did? Did you ever learn? Maybe you learned something new. Hopefully you did. Maybe not, I don't know. And we are done with our lab. If you have any questions, any problems, please let me know. Other than that, have a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you next week, right?